back?
Most fucking definitely.
Oh, you've been caught. Okay. All right. It's episode 30, Coffee with Coach. And we've got Robyn Marsi, who is the wife of Detective Marsi of 23 years in PBA, right? He's the PBA. Is that correct?
Wait, no,
Robyn?
hold up a second. 23 years. That means I had my daughter pre-marriage. No, we're married 28 years.
No, I said he's been a police
24.
officer.
24. This time next November, he retires. 25 years. Yes.
25 years. Okay. So let's we're new friends and you're a client now, which you love my stuff so much, don't you?
Most definitely. Coach Kearns, folks.
Yeah, you're such a liar. Anyway, so Robyn, we've gotten to know each other very well, and I was very moved by your story. So you were, if I get this correct, you were in the building across the street when 9/11 happened, weren't you?
Yeah, I actually was just walking in the doors, not across the street, of my office on Wall Street. I had walked out of the Trade Center 10 minutes earlier than when the first plane hit, but did not actually get home until around 9 o'clock or ish that night, 9 o'clock that night. They would not let us leave for safety purposes. And I actually saw the wave of black cloud, if you would, coming down Wall Street when the first tower fell. So after that, when they finally were evacuating us from our buildings, my boss at the time went right across the water across the street to Pier 11 for the ferry, which I would have taken home then, obviously, instead of the train, and came back and said, can't let anyone leave alone. There's no way. He said, I just watched literally grown men pulling each other off of the ferry so they could hop over and get on. I mean, that's how people were reacting. So we waited and we all walked together, and we walked from downtown Manhattan on Wall Street, 111 Wall Street, all the way to Penn Station, across town. Took us till that evening. We were in the streets when the second tower went down. I will tell you, people were one of two ways. Incredibly helpful, where there were people who opened their homes, let us come in to use bathrooms and gave you water, food. And then there were those who wouldn't even give you the time of day. We're actually charging for water. Now, no one had access to money at the time. It was insanity. And I remember getting into Newark Penn Station, no cell phone now at that point, it's gone. It's completely dead, no money. And I went over to a Port Authority police officer. I asked him if he could radio Hoboken for Mark. At the time, Mark was still on loan on a SWAT team. And Mark, I waited about 40 minutes and Mark showed up in a SWAT car and actually drove myself and at the time my brother's fiance, not who he's married to today, home. And to this day, she's forever grateful and thankful to Mark and I, remembers us every year with a beautiful note or message, her family, everyone, very grateful for helping to get her home. And it was a scene, I don't even know. I mean, listen, I'm here today to talk about it, so I'm lucky. I think of everyone. There's not a day that goes by I don't think about it. Kevin, when I stepped off the train, I think the worst part of that day for me, this is going to sound very vain, was getting a big red X put on my hand and asked to step inside a caged area, fenced-in area where I was hit from head to toe with a hose. And at the time, I couldn't understand it. And 17 years later, I understood it when I felt the lump on my breast and was told I had breast cancer out of the blue, out of nowhere, and had since been, certified through the World Trade Center Health Program, which is vital. And I beg all of you, anyone who was in and around the area who's not aware of the Victim Compensation Program, the World Trade Center Health Program, you still have time to register. Please do. It provides medical help for the rest of your life. And if you're entitled to compensation, you're entitled to compensation. Knock wood, you're not sick, but you really should get yourself out there if you were in the area and at least register that you were and go get checked up. And you never know, because it took 17 years for something to surface on me where I have no family history. I'm the first in my family other than one cousin, first cousin. So took me by surprise. It blew me away. Took a while to sink in.
Mm. You know, and I appreciate the fact that you and was touched by the fact that you shared your recording
Right.
of your conversation when you
Right.
found out, which was to this day, I listened
Yeah.
to it at least 4 times. I was dumbfounded
Yeah.
because you were clearly nervous, clearly scared at the same time you were making jokes. I'm like, how the fuck is she making jokes at a time like
Because
this?
that's me. That's how I, you know, that's
Oh,
how I
get
through
that.
things, you know?
You're forgetting that we were doing shots the other night.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But, you know, the night before that, I told you because we went to the wife who is a breast surgeon. She's a friend of one of Mark's friends' wives, Dr. Caprio. I have no issue shouting out Dr. Kim Caprio, Hartford, Connecticut, ACEs. And she called me as soon as she saw my report right away and got me in right away. So, of course, we had to drive there the night before. My MRI was at 6 a.m. I had already been prepped, though, by my radiologist through my biopsy, speaking with Dr. Caprio. I mean, I was not surprised they were going to come back and tell me, yes, it was cancer. My fear was the MRI was to look to see if they could tell right away, looking at my lymph nodes, if there was any cause for further alarm. And I'm not going to lie and tell you that night I spent the entire night. And what did I tell you? In the back of my head, I planned my funeral. I knew what outfit I wanted to be in. It was going to cost Mark a ton of money to bury me in Chanel. I mean, I was head to toe going decked out, believe me. You know, and I, you know, I say that in with the lightest of heart. I promise you, because I didn't know what she was going to tell me that next morning. And you heard my words. My first words were, when she brought the nurse in and I said, are you bringing in reinforcements? Is this where you're going to tell me I'm going to die? She said, no, not today. So, you know, it was an up and down few months of waiting for certain tests to come back. And up to that point, I was lined up to have chemo first. And, you know, while my first indication was, oh God, I'm going to lose my hair. It, you know, it wasn't about that. It was not even getting sick. It was my daughter having to watch me, my mom having to watch me. I'm not even saying Mark so much. I knew he could do it. My greatest anxiety was coming home and having to tell my 82-year-old mother at that point and sit her down and tell her I have breast cancer. And it took a month until I had an actual plan laid out, my surgery, my treatment, what it was going to be. So I knew I had my facts lined up. And I'm going to show you one binder. I have about 5 of these, 5 of these with every possible article, report, I have a timeline from day one when I first felt the first lump. And from there, every doctor's visit, every conversation, articles. To this day, I still do research. I showed you the bookcase filled with books, Kevin, between that and rheumatoid arthritis. Yeah, it's, they say, oh, don't let it consume you. Don't let it become you. Well, it doesn't become me and it does not consume me, but it is something that never leaves you in the literal sense. Obviously, the physical sense of it is it's out of me, although you'll never guess that I didn't know cancer had to be politically correct, right? Because you don't say cancer free anymore. It's no evidence of disease. That's what they say. You know, rightfully so, because, you know, there could be a cell left behind that is undetected yet, but I'm on 2.5 years now so far, you know, mammogram clean. But best protection is early, early detection. Ladies, I tell you, ladies, get out there, feel yourselves. Don't be afraid. Get in tune with yourselves. Ladies, feel it. Know your breasts, understand them, know what's different. You will know immediately when something doesn't feel right. I did. I knew it wasn't right. Something just drew me to it. Plus the fact that I was in India 3 weeks prior and everyone else was getting eaten from mosquitoes but me. I thought I had, maybe I did buy the greatest insect repellent, but no, I think as it turned out, even the mosquitoes in India didn't want my blood, probably for good reason. But again, I joke, you know, with things like this, you know,
you have to.
I said to you, Kevin, one of the greatest quotes, Winston Churchill, right? Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. And whether it's a joke to me, someone actually said to me, you know, you talk about it an awful lot. Are you sure you want people to know so much? And for me, yes, that was my therapy. I didn't need a therapist. I didn't need anyone talking about it. People would suddenly notice I was not in the office as much or distant. And I was very open from the very beginning and happy to be. For anyone out there who's concerned or scared, there's so many groups on Facebook. They are those support groups are worth, absolutely, they're golden. As much as we might not like Facebook today, I will tell you, to be able to go there and just type in a question and say, is anyone else experiencing this? And hearing others say something similar, you may have a little bit of that anxiety, cuts the edge, and you're okay to get through a day or a night or whatever it might be. But it's a moment that I didn't have time to stop and think about or cry about. Never said, why me? And we had this conversation.
Yes, we did.
Because my answer was, why not me? What made me different? What makes me better than anybody that it shouldn't be me? My only reasoning in my head, I can hope, is it wasn't my daughter that day. And maybe by the grace of God, it wasn't another child that was sick that day. And I'd take it over and over again if it prevented that. I think today, prevention, technology, breast cancer awareness, breast cancer research has come so far. It's amazing what they've done with technology and early detection. It's by far, I believe, saved a lot of lives. Listen, I'm one of the good stories, okay? And I see women who have been beaten up over this, back and forth, thought they were fine, and then years later it comes back. And so where you see these warrior and survivor signs, because we are, and I say we are, and it's, it takes a strong woman to stand this fight, and it's
and a strong family,
and I was just about to say an incredibly strong family. And and I had that, and you heard Mark's voice through the whole thing, and never once was Mark's voice quivered, wavered. Never did he show emotion. It's funny. And I say to him, were you ever worried? He's like, nah, I knew you had this. And I was like, oh, I'm glad you knew. I'm glad you knew.
Robbie, that's, and I appreciate that, but that's the true strength of unconditional love, of a partnership, right? Because it's all great as a single man, now, as and my ex went through a lot of things, and we had each other's back. And then, as and I won't go through this, it just got to a point where it didn't work, and that it is what it is. But there were plenty of times, I remember, trying to get pregnant and couldn't get pregnant, went to IVF the whole bit. Finally had Emily after 3 years of IVF, which is like watching somebody go through cancer. Oh, you're pregnant, you're not pregnant, you're pregnant, you're not pregnant, all the drugs and the whole 9 yards. I ended up going to therapy for it, because it's like, as a man and as somebody's husband, and I think this is just the way we're built, and please don't take this as male chauvinistic or anything else like that, but I'm sure women probably feel the same way. I'd rather take the pain on than be the one watching the pain, because it's just easier, because you can't help. So it was interesting. My ex and I had an argument one night. She's like, you think it's easy being on these drugs? I said, do you think it's easy watching you go through this?
Right. I agree.
And the most devastating, one of the most devastating things we ever went through was, my first daughter, Emily's 5 days old. I go up, everything's fine. She was 9 yards. And my ex says to me, who's like one of the best nurses in Boston, guaranteed, especially infectious disease. And she said to me, I don't want to be in Fonz 5. I go to pick them up. Where are they? Fonz 5. You can't believe how fast I sprint up those stairs. So they were checking her for a cardiac problem. We go to Children's the next day, and we find out our firstborn, after all this time, has 5 holes in her heart that are going to have to be repaired. Oh. So it was like somebody took a shovel. She's crying. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on, and somebody hit me with a shovel in the face. I was like, I can't imagine. What?
See, that's my point. That's my point. I have no room to cry. I feel personally, I don't have any room to cry, to complain. No matter what it felt, what a gut punch it was what it was. It was the hand I was dealt with. I had 2 choices, deal with it or don't. And didn't have a choice but to deal with it. I don't think my family would have allowed me to. And Allie was in the middle of law school, and during her graduation, that's what I was just fumbling with, to pull out the papers. And one of the things I wrote to her and said was, above anything, with her, thanking her for showing me the incredible, compassionate, nurturing, supportive side of her through one of the longest years of my life, and how impressed I was with her strength during this time all while completing her last year of law school, which was not easy. And that I admired every ounce of courage, and honestly could say that watching her changed my life and inspired me to continue to fight and be a better version of myself. So therein was what I saw in her, a greater strength. And whether that strength was coming from what I was going through or not, it was the power of family behind you, friends, coworkers. I mean, I was one of the lucky ones to have a massive support system behind me. And for those who don't, I'm out here. I'm here for anybody who, Kevin, they can get my number through you. I'm happy to talk about it. I could talk day and night about it. I've done tons of research, and I'm not kidding. When you come here, I will show you the binders, the articles, the research, the ups and downs with medication afterwards. And, they don't tell you that the healing really begins when your treatment ends. That's when the true healing starts to begin. That's when you have the time to step back and realize, I likened this to you as, unfortunately, when someone passes away, you're surrounded, and then that goes away.
That goes away.
So when your treatments are done and you're not every day there with that team with you every single day for months, and that day comes when you celebrate that, but after a week you're going, wait, where is it? I'm alone with my thoughts now. That is when it hit me. And yeah, I had a few, weepy days here and there, but never what I would allow myself to do, because no, I am beyond lucky to be where I am today, to be sitting here telling you this, sharing this. Thankful to have seen my daughter graduate that day, and, waiting the day will come to see her walk down the aisle. And I want to see my grandchildren, and I'd never give up the fight. And I just hope the fight never has to come back to me. But,
I appreciate you sharing all that. And the only analogy I can make with that is, I've gone through my own challenges, which I've been very vocal about, because, and please don't take this the wrong way, you say cancer, people show up. You say mental health issues, people go, whoa.
You're right.
And they don't want to take you on. Now,
yeah, right.
I'm gonna confess, when I got sick a little over a year ago, there's a huge stigma attached to PTSD, anxiety, and depression. Huge. And I had it. I was guilty of it, because I'm like, I'm Coach Kearns, I can handle this. And it took over my life. I mean, as you know, that's real.
Right.
I get a 6-inch scar on my neck because I try to do myself in. I try to jump off the Tobin Bridge. The state trooper stopped me.
You're human.
Yeah.
Well, Kearns is still human, right? That's something we forget in everyone.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate that, but you really know who as you mentioned, you really know who your true friends are when you become transparent. Like my closest friends, the challenge was, as a man, and this country's getting better. I mean, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. Right. And as a man, you think, oh, you get this concept that it's all in your head. Now, it is in your head, but it's a chemical reaction. Bad divorce, the whole 9 yards. And I had no clue the emotional pain I was going to go through, selling the family home. The first weekend I didn't have my kids. I'm like, because I've been with somebody for 30 years. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? And you have to, as you said, like, yeah. And it was, my therapist says it's a death of a marriage. It's a death. So I never understood that level of loneliness and pain. And I mean, this took over my life. I remember going into to shower one morning at 4:30 to see a client, and I shook uncontrollably for no reason for 20 minutes. I canceled the appointment. My clients know if I cancel something, I'm dead because I'll come bleeding out my eyes. I'm the type of guy that's from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Shot my arm off. It's just a flesh wound. I keep going. That's why one of my nicknames is Irish Pitbull. I have a tenacity. I just don't quit. I don't quit. I tell people
share live what mine is.
Well, I just don't quit. People say, oh, you've got a lot of martial arts skills, 40 years, ever been in a fight? I said, I haven't been in a fight since I was 13. Normally, I just settle it. Real simple. I look at them and go, look, man, bigger than me, stronger than me, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. No problem. I'm like, why don't we just have a beer, just give them a look? And then usually what I say is, if you want to dance, here's what's going to happen. You probably beat me up the whole 9 yards, but here's what's going to happen. You probably, the next day you'll be in the hospital. You're not going to be able to see. You're never going to have kids. And you're going to walk funny. And then you have to be prepared to kill me because I'm going to keep coming. That's just me. I'm mental. I'm like your husband. I'm cuckoo. But 9 times out of 10, I just give them a look and go and get in their face and go, do you want to dance? Or can we just have a beer and forget this? Because it doesn't matter. Look at what you went through. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. The big day, and I think with all this COVID shit and everything going on, we have to get to the place where we have to stop being consumers. We have to be customers again. Like, you knew I was supposed to go someplace else last weekend, and you guys, Mark said, I go, Mark, how much notice you need for me to come down? 15 minutes. I'm like, I'll come down tomorrow. You opened your home, and then
the
Frank's over there. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Frank was here.
Frank's
is still here.
I'm like, is Frank the pool guy? Oh no, he's just a guy. I'm like,
yeah, he's
okay.
inside right now. Mm-hmm.
But you look at that, and that's old school family values, which we have to get back to. Support systems. Talk to people. Stop fucking texting people. I met a young woman from ADP. Great, Megan Porzak. Great person. She's 20. You listen to this. She's 26. She doesn't like to text or email. She wants to get face to face with customers. I said, Megan, you're ahead of the curve. You're ahead of the curve. She goes, I hate not being with my customers.
Good for her.
I hate it. So I'm referring her to everybody I know. Because I'm like, it's refreshing because we all want to settle bullshit with, I'm too, I want to slap people when they say, I'm too busy, just text me. I'm like, what did you say? I said, I'll fucking dope slap you. You're too busy. I'm
too busy being pre-retired, but
yeah, I said to a client and a friend that said, he's like, oh, I got this customer that all he wants to do is on the phone. Blah. I said, blah blah blah. I said, how long have you been in business? 30 years. I go, okay. Remember the day where you had to have these in your pocket to call from a payphone, which is non-existent.
Right.
You had to sit down and have lunch with the client, dinner with the client. You had to have client meetings. You had to follow up. I remember those days. The phone. The cell phone that was built like this.
Hey, you got a Yeti. I have that.
Hey, you like that?
I got a personalized pink one, of course.
Of course you do. I still have my worry stone. And where's your necklace? Why aren't you wearing it?
Well, because I still have my, you could see it. My daughter bought me my David Yurman breast cancer. So it's only the end of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So
you know what that crystal is that I gave you?
Yeah, I don't remember.
That's rose quartz.
Rose quartz. Yes. Sorry.
And the same, as you can see,
bracelets. Yep.
Mark's got, that's rosewood.
Gave Allie hers.
Yeah. And that's so you guys all stay connected to me.
But I also believe in the power of healing crystals. I believe in all this. But I think what it's about being open. It's about being open. Your mind has to be open. As I say, attitude, whether it's attitude in business, in relationships, in mental health, physical health, being open with an attitude, a positive attitude every day. There were days I didn't want to get off the couch. I didn't feel good. And I felt worse when I didn't. Getting up and getting moving was my only option. And I had to do it because I had to work. And I worked through the entire thing till I finally really was beaten up. And that's when I found out I had rheumatoid arthritis on top of it. And I needed to take some time off. So it's a challenge. Every day is a challenge trying to balance this all out. And probably harder because of today, what's happening, my fear of going out. I go out when I can. I'm one of those people that's at risk with my immune system for many reasons. And, sitting here watching the clock, we've got about 3 more hours till the polls close here. And it's an anxious time. It's a very, very anxious time. You asked me earlier about being the wife of a cop, and I will tell you in the 24 years so far, I've never been this worried. And Mark spent 10 years quickly on loan on a task force, undercover. And during that time, when Allie was in grade school, so much so, and he was on a narcotics task force. And I remember the day her teacher had to call me to say, I think we have to explain, she was maybe in 2nd or 3rd grade, have to explain to Allie a little bit more about what daddy does for a living. Because when asked, Allie's answer was, well, my daddy sells drugs. Because she would see him leave here in DHL. She didn't quite understand. She knew he was a police officer, but didn't quite understand what exactly, though we tried to keep that communication with her open until the day she dialed 911 because she wanted to talk to daddy at work. But little things like that. But yeah, everything like that happens. But today, Mark has told you he's been, shot at, stabbed, and run the gamut. But he's alive today, still out there. And, I have no room, one spot, I have no room in my heart for anyone who's anti-police. And I will tell you, I have a lot of tolerance and a lot of patience. Nobody would believe that. But I don't for that today. one bad apple doesn't spoil the whole bunch. I could go through a gazillion cliches, and it's tough. And it's not just for Mark, but it's for my daughter, worrying about her leaving the house. We've been told, take our shields out of our windows, don't wear any police paraphernalia, anything that could link us to. So even social media, but at a point now where I don't really care. I post whatever I want to post since I'm not working anymore. I don't have anybody to, come after me.
I can't imagine if you can touch on that, and I appreciate your time tonight. I know you got to give your aunt her dinner, or your mother, and I can't imagine the level of stress for you as the wife of a police officer for 24 years.
No,
and he's like, oh, I got shot. What?
No, shot at, not shot, but
well, he's got stabbed. I've seen the stabs.
And Mark would leave here at 4 a.m. and go in on, these raids that they're talking about now with, warrants and all of this. And it's why I could sit there and literally my blood starts to curdle on fire, listening to people about it. And Mark was the first guy in the door. Once the ram went through, Mark was always the first one through. And I knew. And people say, how did you do it? I didn't think about it. I had to, that's why I think with the cancer too, I laugh and I say to Mark, see, it was being married to you for so long that toughened me up this way, but because it takes a lot to rattle me. It takes an awful lot to offend me and to rattle me. So if I get rattled or offended, there's a good reason.
You compartmentalize it, right? You have to compartmentalize.
No, I don't. What I do is I know when I'm gonna blow, basically. No, what I'm saying is I think living that life might have in a way prepped me, though the news was hard to hear. It stopped me. I think my life of knowing every day, I lived every day almost like an waiting for something, waiting for a phone call. Didn't have a choice, and it was his job. What I'm saying is I think that just made me a stronger person in and of itself, that taking the news the way I did, it was shocking. It was more, I remember a week later driving back to the doctor for something, and I called Mark to tell him what she said. And I said to him, I can't believe we're even having this conversation. I mean, the words coming out of my mouth are just unreal. And the first few weeks was hard for me to actually say the words breast cancer. It really just seemed like, wow, is that me? I'm that person. I'm the 1 in 8. I'm the one. Yeah, well, I was. And you know what? I personally think that number's higher. There's far too many women I know who are also going through the same. And I will say again, God bless and God be with them all. I'm one of the lucky ones. There's way too many who aren't as lucky and a hell of a lot stronger than me. Damn straight.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I look back at, my experience and didn't tell a lot of people what I went through. And I think the politically correct term is I'm in remission from my depression. Okay. I think I'm cured. Thank God I had, I tried everything, drugs, you name it. I tried it all. Yeah. Therapy, the whole 9 yards. And thank God I had a good therapist who committed me. I woke up Christmas morning at McLean Hospital. And then I found out about ECT therapy, which usually it takes about 10 sessions and it's the same thing that you went through, similar with the chemo treatment. The whole crew. I knew the whole crew. They're the great people and the whole 9 yards. And they couldn't believe after 3 sessions, I made a complete turnaround, Yep. And I had one of my best friends, Craig Rose, who drove me like almost once a week in the beginning, then you taper off. He drove me once a week, came down from Linfield. We had to go to Belmont on his day off, pick me up and drive me back in the whole 9 yards. He gave up 3 to 4 hours of his day without even asking. I just said, bro, I need a favor. Done. Make sure you schedule it Monday and Tuesday. And then as time went on, I backed off from it because they said, yeah, you can taper. And I released a video back in like January when my business coach, Steve Whittier, said, he goes, you've been kind of absent on social media. I want you to do X, Y, and Z. And first thing, talk about something difficult. So I talked about I didn't talk about this, but I talked about my depression, that I was back. I got 2,000 hits in one day. People from high school were reaching out to me and going, what do you need? What do you need? Yeah. What do you need? And, one of the happiest days was over 2 months ago that I finally made the decision. The Belmont McLean people were great. They're phenomenal. They're the best, one of the best in the country. And I said to the nurse practitioner, because they interview you, how you're feeling, any thoughts, the whole bit. I mean, it's a process to go through this. It takes 4 hours, and it's almost my entire day. You can't eat. It's a surgical procedure. And I had clients that were doctors saying, "What are you doing that for?" Because they have this thought in their head from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's like, look, this has been I didn't even investigate it until afterwards. My heart told me to do it, and I did it when I heard about it in the clinic. So I got to try something different. I can't bury my head in the sand. Nothing's working for me. Exercise isn't working for me. This isn't working for me. And I look at everybody. We all go through trauma, and I believe that we all have PTSD from that trauma. We all hit depression and anxiety, and some of it's bad. And we cope in different ways. And most of the way people cope is addiction, whether it be sugar, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be sex, it's something, or food. It's all the same. And that's how people cope. Everybody has some type of addiction. Am I addicted to exercise? Yeah, I've been doing it for 40 years. Am I addicted to martial arts? Yeah. Am I addicted to yoga? And then it becomes there's a very fine line. Like I tell people, like, what's more important, coach, commitment or consistency? Both. Because the chicken and the egg. So I would say that to people. I go, just like somebody said to me, "Oh, I want to be wanted. I don't want to need somebody." I go, "Hold on a second here." I go, "That's not true." Whether it be a relationship or what, I go, to me, it's like, you want to be with your daughter, and you also need to be with your daughter, right? You want to be with your husband. Well, not all the time, and you need to be with your husband. Well, it's the same thing. Like I look at it and I spin into exercise. I want to go to yoga. I need to go to yoga.
Yeah.
I want to do martial arts, and I need to do martial arts. I want to be with my kids, and I need to be with my kids. It's called unconditional love. That's what it is.
And I want to step back a second on that, because I don't want people to think that I'm making so light of what I went through. Right?
No way.
Because were there days where my doctor had me, actually, I did see a palliative care doctor for quite a while now. Palliative care is usually for, well, not end of life, but for many reasons, for the medication, just for help, because one medication, you'd get 7 different side effects. Those side effects, they give you something else. I mean, and I can tell you the numerous amounts of antidepressant drugs they wanted to put me on for this, for that, because it would help with every other side effect, and I never took them. Again, I couldn't take it, but that doesn't mean I didn't like the feeling. But that doesn't mean I didn't have those days where was I going through a period of depression, something. And it wasn't because, oh my God, I was sick, I'm a victim. No, it was everything around it, everything else afterwards, the medication, the fact that I have to take this for 10 years, and then rheumatoid arthritis. And you literally are, I'm afraid to say some days, what else? But obviously God gives you what you can handle, and I can handle this, and I'm okay with that. But that's not to minimize what I went through. And I'm not saying because I need anybody to pat me on the back, but there were people who reached out to me that I hadn't heard from in years. And I actually, the other day when I thought we were going to meet, I went and got the bag upstairs, because I literally have a pile probably about yay high of cards, prayer cards, just the little papers that would come with flowers from even Allie's friends, their parents. And just even to today, I still get people who will message me and ask how I'm doing. And by the way, who did a friend of mine was just diagnosed, and would you speak to them? And I was like, yeah, I've got tons of binders, tons of information. It's all out there, but I'm neurotic about on the OCD side with certain things. So I keep things organized in every conversation. My biggest tip is I record a voice record. I ask the doctor for their permission, and I use the feature on the phone, the voice record. And I come home and I put my headset on and I transcribe the notes the old-fashioned way. Do you know, to this day, I still go back to them. I'm going to show this to you here really quick, because I have some of them here. These are actually, hey Vito, these are transcribed notes from doctor's visits, front and back, pages, literally, and pages that where I was on voice record with the doctor from my first diagnosis through my oncologist, through whatever. And to this day, I can still go back and read these notes, and it now make a lot of what they said then really even makes sense to me today. So it's just a tip for me that I just did with my aunt recently when I took her to the doctor. And because I knew I might miss something that the doctor said, though I didn't tell the doctor I was recording that one, I did record it. And because you do miss a lot, you hear one word, and that one word your mind kind of almost shuts down.
Exactly.
Really, I heard literally one word. So it was without a doubt, no matter what, there were 2 appointments. Mark always came with me to see the surgeon and the oncologist. And if he didn't go, either one of my cousins or someone else came with me. Someone else was always there with me. And just side note about me, always not joking and laughing, but when I showed up for my first radiation appointment, you get an ID card and you have to scan it when you're there so they know you're there, and they get the machine prepped. And as I walked in, she asked me for my ID and I showed it to her and she matched it. She said, okay, the next day, the same thing. And I think, I won't use the nurse's name, but I said, really? She goes, it's protocol. We have to do this every day. I go, because someone else would want to be me right now and come and take my place to get ready. It's not like I'm sending somebody to get a drug test on my behalf. It's like, yeah, because somebody wants to lay under a laser beam machine basically and have, a gazillion volts of radiation put through their body right now. Really? She's like, I know, it's protocol. It's silly. And I'm like, no, I get it for the most part. And, the only other funny day was when they were doing one of the ultrasounds, and this nurse, for some reason, this technician, she just never cracked a smile. One of the miserable ones. I don't know why. And she just was so miserable looking, and she was doing it. And I went, is that the heartbeat? And I started to laugh. She goes, what? I go, I'm kidding. Obviously, I'm joking, like an ultrasound. If I was pregnant, never mind. It went completely over. Obviously, it wasn't funny. I thought it was funny. She didn't. I laughed. Still laugh. Well,
it's
she
funny.
Just didn't have the sense of humor. But
it's funny that you share that, because, as you know, I'm in the middle of writing my second book. The first book was Always Pick Last. My life growing up after my father died from alcoholism at 12 and getting picked on. And now my new book is obviously to help people with depression who've been through it. There's light in the tunnel, how to survive and thrive with depression. Right. So to step back a bit, when I announced that, when I did that video, I never expected it to go viral. It's funny, the woman I was dating back then was no longer with me. She gave me shit because some of her friends said it. You were manic, you were this. I got so many accolades. I had a woman from that I graduated with about 4 weeks ago reach out to me, who was a first responder. She's like, Kevin, haven't spoken to her in at least 30 years.
Excuse me one second. Can you keep it down? Sorry.
Haven't spoken to her in 30 years. She says, hey, Kevin, I'm having a problem. I'm like, spent an hour on the phone with her, laid out a plan. I said, I want you to stay in contact with me, blah, 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 blah. I want you to start exercising, blah, blah, blah. I want you to start doing this, doing that, start doing that. She's like, I don't know how to thank you. I sent her my book. She couldn't thank me enough. I've been one of my soon-to-be master trainers. Hadn't spoken to him in 9 years. He's been following me. Really? He has PTSD. Yeah, he has PTSD because right around 9/11, he was at a nightclub in Miami, and something happened, transpired, nothing major. Miami police officer put his arm behind his back, didn't identify him, and he's a martial artist. He threw him, and then he got the shit kicked out of him by 5 cops after he apologized and lost the sight in his eye.
Wow.
And he's a BJJ. He's bad cops. He's a BJJ guy. He goes, Kevin, when I get in side control, I know it's a long explanation. He goes, I start having flashbacks. He hadn't had them in years. He goes, I saw you months ago talking about, your situation with your depression. Can you help me? I'm like, yeah. And then the next weekend I went down and visited him, because I'm writing a book to help people. Is it going to help me? Yeah. My first book was cathartic. My mother is still mad at me for saying Dad wasn't an alcoholic. I'm like, Ma, how did I know at 12? He died of liver failure at 48.
Different generation.
Yeah.
Different generations that didn't talk about things.
No, it doesn't mean he was a bad guy. He was a happy drunk, but he still drank too much, ate shit.
But the generations were that back then it wasn't discussed. They didn't talk about it. If your children had problems, it wasn't discussed.
No.
Didn't say the words out loud, or
what's funny about that? So, we all know about gay stigmatism and all that 9 yards. So I come from a very big family. My mother's one of 8 from the Depression. My father was one of 4. So Aunt Dee and Uncle Henry, God rest their soul, were like second parents to me. We were, it was back then because we all visited our relatives. That's what we used to do, right? You visit, you have family, the whole 9, this, that, and the other thing. So Uncle Henry's the one who taught me into karate, the whole 9 yards. And when we found out her son, Kenny, was gay, she was open about it. No, he's gay. Like I knew he was. And then when I was 18, I looked at my mother, goes, Kenny gay? She's like, yeah. And then when he died of AIDS-related symptoms, she had no problem saying it. No problem.
Right.
I always loved Auntie for that. She was straight, not to mention she'd drive like a fucking maniac. It was like, I'm like, okay, Auntie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I always remember. But Uncle Henry in my book, I talk about him for my first book. He talked. We were broke. My mother worked part-time. We lived off of my father's pension. We had a 3-family. I don't know how she kept us afloat. Plus, my mother was a shell of herself. So people say, oh, I'm sorry your father died. I go, look, if my dad didn't die, God rest his soul, that's his ring. If I ever hit anybody with my cross, they're coming down because the whole Kearns clan will hit you. I said, if he didn't die, I would not be who I am. And then I was discussing this, and I think you and I discussed this. Every year thereafter, my father died from age 12 to age 21. I went to a funeral every year. The worst two, my father. The second worst one was my uncle, my cousin Georgie, who was like a brother to me, when he took a bullet to the head for a bad drug deal. And I could see the fill in. And you know what? No kid should walk in to. Back then, we were there like 3 times a day. I mean, walking in and seeing your father dead over and over again at 12 fucks with your head. Sure. It fucks with your head.
Yeah.
And I mean, it messed me up. Not to mention, when you look at left side, right side, right? So if you look at Buddhism, they say if you have something on your left side, it's the past. If you have something on your right side, it's the future. So I've had issues on my right side, my shoulder, the whole 9 yards for years, because I still have a challenge because I'm still upset and I don't understand why. And I was never ever asked my mother, why didn't you wake me up that night?
Say that again, because my tumor was on the right. So I don't know.
So if you look at Buddhism, if you look at Buddhism says left is past, right is future. Yeah. So a lot of times when you have injuries, this, that, and it comes out on one side versus the other, like I injured this shoulder multiple times, only my left. Mm-hmm. Only my left. I've never injured my right, ever.
Okay.
And if you get a chance to read my book, one of the things I say is, my father was doing fine one week, and then all of a sudden he wasn't doing fine. And I just posted something about what he said. God rest his soul. What he said to me a long time ago. I'll never forget it. And I'll say that in a second. I just saw him, and I thought, you're gonna love this. It was Valentine's Day. I was 12. I was hung up on this girl, Rita Fournier, the whole 9 yards. I was talking to him about it. It seemed fine. And then when he died, I felt bad because I felt like it was my fault because I didn't give him a Valentine's Day card. And then we went in like the Saturday or Sunday before he died. They were pulling shit out of his nose through a tube, and I knew, I'm like, something's wrong. So it was February 19th, 1979. My father was proud of me because I got a paper. Yeah, my father was proud of me that I got a paper route. I even asked for a bigger paper route. He was so proud of me. And I go to my paper route. My mother doesn't say anything to me. Little did I know, she went out in the middle of the night, and my sister, because he was calling for his family, and he died. Literally died right then and there. So my sister got to say goodbye. I didn't. I come in, and his best friend, Ray Donnie, who was the plumbing inspector, because my father was a building inspector for Everett. Everybody loved him. He's sitting. He's in the house, and he's sitting on my toy box. I can still remember the wooden toy box, the oak toy box that I never used. He's like, I got to talk to you. Now, Ray was a big practical joker. He used to chase me around the office the whole 9 yards. He sits me down. My mother's in the kitchen. I could hardly see. He goes, I got to talk to you. I don't know how to say this. I go, okay. And I'm waiting. And he says, no joke. He says, your father died last night. I started laughing because I thought he was kidding. And then I peeked into the kitchen, saw my mother with her head down, and I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
And that's when my anger started.
I can understand that. But, it's about learning. And you were 12,
Oh, I had to be, my mother I kept going to my mother for a year. She had to push me away. I had to be 21 when I was 12.
Yeah.
When in my book, I talk about being 13, and it was the loneliest summer of my life, and all the bullying stuff got worse. My quote unquote friends.
So when I say I'm one of the lucky ones in that respect, hearing these stories, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, when, Robyn, you had cancer, but you're okay. Yeah, I am okay, and I will be okay. Not funny, but people will look at me some days and say, so you look good, you're okay, right? Yeah, I just say, yeah, let's leave it there. I mean, okay, we'll leave it there. I'm okay. It's not an easy thing because people just think physically I look okay. So, well, then you must be perfectly okay. That's not actually the case. I just don't physically show it. And my way of a lot is talking about it. I do.
You're not going to whine about it.
No, a lot is through laughter. And it's not to make a joke about being sick or about cancer ever. That's not the case. I can turn something into, a joke. You heard Mark on that,
Yeah, can you make the breast big?
right, talking about that. Can we do a tummy tuck? And I'm not joking.
Yeah.
They were literally wheeling me into surgery. And he said it to the nurse again. Hey, don't forget, can we get a 2-for-1 tummy tuck? And folks, no, I didn't get a tummy tuck out of the deal. But
no, but you have to have hats off to him, because you have to have some of that. If you don't have some of that, you just lost.
That's exactly right. And if anyone heard it and hear him say, well, it may not have been that conversation. There was another one where he looked at me and goes, wow, you'd stop at nothing to get a boob job. And it's like, well, we can laugh at it. It's okay, folks. I'm allowed to laugh at it because it was about me. It happened to me, and it was said in jest. It was funny. And yeah, because for years I wanted new boobs. I did want a boob job. Not this way, believe me. But
it's funny. It's funny that you said this. So I'm going to jump back for a second, and I will close with this because I know you're busy and your mother and everything else. So the only experience I have of that, because I'm like you guys. That's why we fit in so well. I'm off the hook. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I've never cared about what anybody says to me since I was 21. I just never care, and I always back it up. And my biggest pet peeve: if you're going to talk the talk, fucking walk the walk. Because I will call you out. Don't point the finger at me when you have 3 more. You have 3 more pointing back here. So I'll tell you this experience real quick. I'm 35, I think. I was 35. So, we're going to IVF, the whole 9 yards. We walk into Boston IVF, my ex and I, trying, no protection for 5 years, trying the whole 9 yards. Can't get pregnant the whole bit, right? So Dr. Berger's there, no joke. He's this nice 30-year-old South African guy, good-looking guy, with the last appointment of the day. Now, I'm not saying it's cancer, but it's similar to kind of doing all the steps and the drugs and everything else, and they torture their body and the whole bit. So, I got it. I read all the research and I understood what was going on. So he's being very kind and gentle and, very empathetic about the whole situation. And I'm like, we're the last appointment. So I can imagine, it's a stressful thing going through IVF. It's a very stressful thing. It's extremely stressful. You're pregnant, you're not pregnant, all the drugs. Emotionally, physically, some of the drugs can cause lupus. It was crazy. So I'm sitting there and this is going on for 20 minutes, and you'll love this, going on for 20 minutes. And my ex is looking at me out of the corner of her eye because she knows I'm fucked. So she just knows. So he gives his speech, and you can tell it's very emotional for people, the whole bit. So I said, he says, any questions? I raised my hand. I said, straight face, deadpanned it. I said to him, I have one question, Dr. Berger. He's like, okay, Mr. Kearns, what is it? I go, there is skank porn available when I have to whack off, right? And I deadpanned it.
Wait, where'd you go?
Sorry, my battery. I deadpanned it. I did it with a straight face. He looked at me. His jaw was open. She's hitting me. My ex is hitting me. I go, I'm just fucking with you. He goes, you're going to be a lot of fun.
And I'm sure you weren't the first he's heard something like that from. So, no, but again, it's that humor, and some people could say, oh, you're a horrible person to find any humor in illness, and then it's not finding the humor in the illness. It's not at all. It's finding the humor to allow yourself that moment to laugh and get through something.
Breathe.
It's okay. It's okay to laugh sometimes, folks. It really is. But it's also okay to cry. It's okay to feel bad for yourself, about yourself, but pick yourself back up then and get moving again. You can't just cry over it.
Get like Ali. Don't stick your head in the sand. Like Ali said, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8. There's a motivational speaker I listen to. He goes, life. Sometimes you have to hit life back. Life will hit you sideways. And I hear stories and stories I've heard, like stories and stories and stories. I've heard your story. Yeah, I had another client tell me, like, confess a bunch of stuff I hadn't known about him, the life he led. I've heard this story, that story. You'll love this. This is a very touching story that I just found out. Captain Martin's female. If they put her picture on a recruiting post, the guys will be like, I'm signing up. No lie. No lie. She reached out to me, the whole 9 yards. All we're focusing on right now, and it's WIIFM, is the election and COVID. Nobody's talking about the peacekeepers that are putting their lives on the line, right? I put up something a few weeks ago about this beautiful young woman, whether she's beautiful or not, doesn't matter. She's a Marine. She lost her leg saving her teammates.
I saw that.
I reposted it.
I got a lot of shares out of that. I did too. You sent
Just
it
like
to
the,
me. Yes.
just like the
She
little
deserved-
girl that has.
She deserved 1,000,000 more.
Exactly. So Captain Rosen reaches out to me, and we go back and forth. I didn't realize she was there because we don't talk about it. And who's talking about it? She's like, oh, she goes, I can only communicate briefly via email because we can't have it for personal use. She's an artillery captain.
Wow.
19 years
God
in.
bless.
Oh, it gets better.
Bless.
It gets better, sister.
Bless
Wait
her.
till you hear this one.
Seriously.
Yeah, exactly. It gets better. Artillery captain, combat, the whole bit. They can't have phones because the insurgents will use them as bombs.
Sure.
You want to hear this one now? She meets her husband in the military. Okay. They decide they have a house in Ireland, a house in Los Angeles. She's 19 years in, getting ready to retire. Because he wasn't familiar with the right side of the road versus the left side of the road, he gets killed in a truck accident with one of her kids. She's serving. Okay. So when I hear people say, my family, my this, I go, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, but by all means, Colin Kaepernick and all you followers, continue to kneel for the flag, motherfuckers. I don't think
exactly.
So. Get the fuck up. Seriously.
Yeah.
This is where I'll start going the wrong way.
Exactly. You wouldn't be playing your sport if those men and women weren't sacrificing their lives. If the law enforcement officers weren't out there. If the firefighters were, how many times did you and I see firefighter after firefighter after firefighter going into the tower? When I might not come back.
We're walking the opposite way. They were all going in willingly.
Willingly. I talked to former firefighter Rocco, I think it was Bernardi. He goes, he worked in Times Square. He goes, you know what it's like getting woken up 7 times in one night? 7. They've even proven. Mark said to me the other day, night shift police have they live 5 years less.
Did you read the article that you read? Is that the article you were reading?
I think so. It was about sleep, and Mark's working on getting me to write for them.
Yeah.
Which because they talk about
exactly my point. Yeah. It's pretty.
They don't talk about health and they don't talk about health and fitness. And Mark's like, I'll get you in there. I said, I can bang out stuff left and right. And about my first responder thing. That's how we know each other now. Right. I'm giving up. I'm like, I'm working on North Smithfield with North Smithfield Police. There's 35 cops. We've only got like 5 to 6 cops using it, and it's free. And then the other thing I do is I give them free access for life to my fitness app. And it's like, dude, lifting weights ain't gonna help you.
And it got my
there you
chip.
go.
So your chips. The right way. I got my chip.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the basically kindness coins. That's going to change the planet. Watch it. So Robyn, thank you for your time tonight. I know it's getting late, and I know you got to get your mother's food and everything else. Not to mention all the stuff you're doing now. Do you want a copy of the book? Should I send you a copy of the book? Or do you want it on Kindle?
No.
You want paper?
Paper.
All right,
paper.
I'll handle it.
I don't have a Kindle anyway. I'm an iPad person.
Okay, but you can get the Kindle app. It's free. I'll get a book.
I'd rather a book.
Did Allie like her bracelet?
She loved it. Yes.
And her hoodie?
And the sweatshirt. And her hoodie, yes, absolutely. And actually, her boyfriend was sitting there and did say, "Where's mine?" So.
You know what? I'll say to him, I was there for 2 days. Your face.
Now you're gonna post
this once.
Yeah. Well. Anyway.
Right.
So anyway, what are we closing with?
So I want you to close with like one overall thought that if somebody comes across something, I mean, the idea behind Coffee with Coach is like, look, man, somebody always has it worse. What would be the one thing that you would say to somebody if they get cancer, if they get depression, if they get something that they hit the wall hard? What would be one thing that you could say to them that would kind of go, okay, I get it?
Giving up is not an option. It's the only thing I can say. Or call me. Or call me.
It's not an option, right? It's not.
That's what I'm saying. People could say, well, yeah, it is. Well, hold on. It's not meant for you to actually read into and analyze. It's a state. I'm saying it as a statement, and it is one of the breast cancer quotes. Giving up is not an option. You never know how strong you are until being strong is your only choice. And they'll say, well, no, you had a choice to not be strong if you didn't want. Again, reading way too much into this, folks. The point is, be strong, have the positive attitude, don't give up. When you say to yourself over and over, giving up is not an option, it means I'm not giving up, I'm not going to stop. because it's not an option in my mind, in my situation. So don't let it ever be an option. Don't ever let that be an option. It's
Yeah,
not an
it's
option.
like the old quote. I think it was the Vikings when they invaded a territory. I forget who. I think it was the Vikings. I'm not sure. The captain turned around. He goes, "You see the boats? I have burned them. We win or we die. Plain and simple." My famous quote would be real simple. I'm like, you know what? I learned this at 13 and then I forgot about it. Or 14, I forgot about it. Ask for help. It's okay. Ask for help.
Great.
That's how I got in. That's how I got into bodybuilding. That's how I don't bodybuild anymore, but that's how I got into strength training, the whole bit. Anytime I hit a wall, I'm like, ask for help. Reach out. You know who your true friends are when you become transparent. Say, I need you. You know, your friends are all great. Yeah, your friends are all great when everything's going nice, and it's all fucking rainbows and unicorns. But when shit hits the fan, who's left around, who calls you on a regular basis, says, "Hey, are you," like my friend Craig still checks in with me. Like the happiest moment of my life, and Lionel too. The happiest moment, one of my happiest moments in my life, 2 months ago, I said to the ECT crew, electroconvulsive therapy crew, great people at Belmont. I said, "When do I know I don't need this anymore?" And Chris looked at me, that one of the heads.
You don't need to ask that question.
Well, no, he goes, yeah, exactly. He goes, when you ask that question, I said, okay. I said, I'm done. And we had a long talk about it. I talked to my therapist about it. He goes, talk to them. And Chris looked at me, he goes, you're good. And it was funny because every time I came in, after I turned the corner for months, everybody in there, you look great, Kevin. You look good. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I said, I feel great. And people were like, would high-fiving me the whole night. And everybody knew me.
Yeah.
The whole crew, 20 people knew me. I'm like, oh, who's my IV ninja today? And we're joking around, fucking around. I'm handing out my business cards. I'm on the table getting propofol to get knocked out. And I see the doctor, one of the doctors there, I go, weren't you asking me about personal training? He goes, you're unbelievable. I said, ABC, always be closing.
There were a handful of people who, not even a handful, that I would have thought ride or die, but weren't. Whether or not it was because they couldn't bear to watch it was the excuse. I don't know. Whatever. I respect that. And then there were, and this is why I say, I'm here. You're welcome to give my number to anyone. I'm lucky for the support system I have within not just family, but friends, friends of friends, Facebook group chats, just getting yourself out there in the awareness. But there are people who have no one. There are women whose stories I've read where their husbands have left them because they have cancer and see them physically different. And it's sad. It's very sad. There are, again, there are really, really bad cases, worse cases than mine, heck of a lot. And I know that I am one of the lucky ones. And people that I didn't expect who stepped up beyond family in the littlest way, which might have seemed the smallest thing that they did, which was send a card, handwritten note. Who does that anymore, right? Because everything's email. And just to say, we're here for you, the girls, myself, our family, no matter what is going on, we're here for you. Hadn't heard from really these people in years, but it didn't matter. Saw it on Facebook, took the time to send me a handwritten note, and I've got tons of them, that I received. And not everybody will be that lucky. Not everyone's going to have that. So, I'm putting myself out there that I'll be that person for someone who needs to get through a night or talk or has questions. And about supporting one another.
I'm the same way. I mean, I told people that didn't know what I went through. Like I told my old crew, Mark Delagrati, who hadn't seen me in months. He goes, what? Why didn't you call me? I said, look, let's just forget about it. I said, I didn't know how to help myself. And then I'll share this. And I think I told you this and you were like, write it off. And I did. I had a friend who knew me. I won't say who it was, for a long time. And, I was dating somebody who was very kind of verbally abusive. And, I was questioning myself, and during COVID and everything else that went on. And she called me, she's like, you're so self-centered. So I took a step back and I went, am I? Because I was doubting myself a little bit confidence-wise. And this is 4 or 5 months ago, 3 months ago, whatever. And I called them up, and because my other two friends weren't available, and I called them up, and he's like, well, I don't know the situation, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. I go, well, he goes, well, if you want it straight, you'll love this. Known me for over 20 years. He said to me, now, mind you, I'm at a kind of a low point a little bit, right? My confidence was a little rocked because this woman was kind of a manipulator. And she had her own issues. He said, oh, now, Rob, you haven't known me that long, but would you ever describe me as this? He said, you're the most, and I know this from all therapy. Anytime somebody uses a global term like the most, you never always, they're talking about themselves probably.
Right.
So he said to me, he goes, you're the most self-centered person I've ever met. I almost crashed my car. I go, you've known me. I've said to myself, wow, you've known me. I got a lot to think about. And then basically from that, I stopped contacting them.
So I will quote, and I know I'm going to quote this. We'll close on this.
Sure.
Friend Frank.
Frank!
Actually, yep. Frank says this a lot, and I actually have it written, and I brought it up here to make sure, because I've got tons of quotes in my phone here that I go back and read quite often. And you said one earlier, when you point one finger, remember there's three pointing back at you. But what you criticize in others is what you don't like in yourself. And that is, I have found that recently with all of this that's going on with the election and whatnot today, up to today, incredibly true. The way people
absolutely
are so quick to throw buzzwords out and point fingers and say things, and you step and look back at the person and say, oh, is that really what they're describing, or is it themselves? Because I don't think I'm. And it's a very, very powerful quote when you understand the meaning behind it. And when you're criticizing, it's usually about what you don't like in yourself. And that's a lot for people to digest, but it is there's a lot.
No. I agree with that 100%. And I'll quote two things and we'll close, and I appreciate that a ton. One thing I've gotten very much into over the past 9 months to a year, maybe longer, a quote I've been working on is this, and I think I mentioned this to you. And one of those things I realized is the problem people have nowadays. What I'm seeing is the issue with people in general, even myself. I mean, it takes a lot. Is personal responsibility. Own your shit. Mm-hmm. Own your shit. If you're gonna talk the talk, fucking walk the walk.
Right.
Don't be your fucking bullshitters. Now, that's kind of street of me. And the other quote I love is from Mark Twain that I've been working on for over 2 years. And this is an internal quote. And this is deep because I said it to Mark one day and he hit pause on me. I think I mentioned it to you. I don't remember if we were drinking when I mentioned it. So anyway, it must have been after a few vodkas. So this is a Mark Twain quote. Forgiveness is the fragrance that is shed by the violet on the heel that has crushed it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So basically, and the first person you need to forgive is you. You fuck up, you make amends. You ask for forgiveness, as they say in Al-Anon.
Yourself. Well, whether it's Al-Anon or not, it means a lot. Forgiveness
exactly. And at the end of the day, too. You know what? If you fuck up, you own it. We're humans. We're not infallible, right? And at the end of the day, if they can't forgive you, that's on them, because you took care of your side of the street.
What I'm saying,
my side's clean. Side's clean, and I don't care if it's family. I don't care if it's friends. As I always say, people used to always say, "Well, blood's thicker than the water." I go, bullshit. Blood's blood, water's water. You can pick your friends, you can't pick your family.
Well, true.
You can.
You don't have to pick your friends either, but then that's true. And I can, yes.
No, but you can. You have to pick your friends.
Yes. You can't pick your family. Well, it's very true.
You can pick your friends, you can't pick your family.
No, sadly, I know. Wish I could. But no, I have a very, very strong, you met my cousin Lori. Great. Yeah. I mean, one of my closest friends, since we're a year apart, we grew up together as, we're cousins. We grew up like sisters, and I have other cousins that way too. And I'm lucky to have that. I'm incredibly lucky to have that. My family, again, was an incredible support system. Even my mom, her age, and I know you didn't get to meet her when you were here, but you will at Thanksgiving. She came to me right after my surgery and looked me dead in the eyes and said to me, "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I don't even know how you're getting through this." And I said, "Well, I only had I'm not in pain because I only took Tylenol." She said, "No, I don't mean it that way." She said, "I've not seen you cry. I've not seen you." And I looked at her and I said, "What choice do I have but not to be strong? If I'm not strong, you're going to fall apart, and I can't have that." So my daughter can't fall apart in her last year of law school. Mark couldn't fall apart because of his job. So for anyone to see me break would have broken them. So
exactly,
I didn't have a choice but to be strong. And I believe, plus thankfully, like I said, early detection is the best prevention, because I was incredibly lucky to have caught this when we did. And, it wasn't there a year before, and then suddenly it was. But, I was looking for another quote really quick, but I don't know what I did with it. I think you mentioned something the other day about it. Right. Some people are so busy learning the tricks of the trade, they never actually learn the trade itself. And I know we were talking about something different the other day when we were mentioning that. And that was one I also wanted to mention to you, but that could be another podcast another time. But that's it. So that's my story. I'm sure there's more to come. I hope not, in a good way, though. Like
Well,
me,
we'll have another.
like
We'll have
me
another
meeting,
conversation.
me meeting with Dr. Mark that I have to set up that appointment with, right? Dr. Mark Mincola, is it?
Mincola, please.
And
please.
you know, hopefully that will help me with this second half of what I'm dealing with the rheumatoid, which is very painful. It's debilitating at times. So.
Well, you know the other side of the coin, right? I mean, now that you have a bracelet in my wheelhouse. So here's the difficult thing: you're gonna have to kill me to get rid of me. Number one. Number two, this is a Boston compliment, and I don't say this often. I'll fucking lay down in traffic for you and your family. So that basically means if you call me in the middle of the night, I'm just gonna say shovel or shotgun. Which do I? Well, actually, you know how I like a sword. Which do I need to bring?
Probably the gun before the shovel, right? You need the shovel. No, never mind. Anyway,
yeah, but see, I don't like the gun. I'd rather bring the sword.
So now,
it's more fun.
People hear this. It's like, wait, what? We went from one thing to now we're going after people. Yet,
well, hey, no, that basically means that you know what, your friends need you.
Yeah.
You know, I've got one of my master trainers in Okinawa, known him for 6-7 years. I'm like, Ben, you okay? We talk at least once a month. You okay? You need anything? What's going on? Same for you, coach. You know, he got on and he talked about being black and everything, and he went through he's not mad at it. It's something he went through, you know? Let's move forward. Let's not move back. Don't get, as Dr. Wayne Dyer would say, and I'll close with this, and I appreciate all your time tonight. Don't get stuck in the wake of your life. The wake's what's left behind. Boats don't go backwards. They go forward. They go forward. All right. Go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. I was reading a comment from somebody on Facebook. That's all. So I blow up Facebook left and right, all about backing the blue, supporting the blue.
Absolutely too. Absolutely. That's why I'm doing. That's why I'm doing my first responder stuff.
We bleed blue and we bleed pink. So in all fairness, so it's
exactly. The closing. I'll just say namaste. Basically, that's from yoga. That means I see you in your light.
Right here tonight, watching TV with a cocktail.
So namaste, which means I honor you. I send you light, love, and peace in your day, in your family's day. From my Thai boxing background, so Woody Cup, that basically means hello and goodbye, and I honor you. And then Kapum Cup means thank you very much.
And all I got is talk to you tomorrow.
Just say domo arigato gozaimasu. I speak some Japanese.
Yeah, never.
Domo.
I'm just gonna end it with this, ladies. Don't be afraid. Feel your girls. Know them. Understand them. Know your breath. You need to know them to understand them. So early detection, it doesn't matter. Feel away. Feel away, ladies.
Feel away. Or have your partner feel away.
Do it. They won't know. It's not your own body. You know your own body.
Yeah, but it's kind of fun.
It'd be fun, but that's not the point of where I was headed with this. You're taking it somewhere else. Have a nice night. Anybody wants to talk, Kevin, you have my information. I'm happy to speak to anyone.
Right back at you.
Namaste, mofo.
Namaste, the double K and the double M.
That looked like an N, not an M.
No, this is a K. That's kind of an M. Mark Marsi. I can't do R. R is fuck. How can I do R? I can't do fucking R.
Well, I think you need a sign language class. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. Good night.